Happy Friday, everybody. I feel like I have so much content running through me. I almost made a video last night. I went for a walk in the neighborhood to kind of separate myself and just reconnect to me again. And I just had so much content come up in that walk that I almost made a video last night, and this morning I just feel like I have so much more content, and I think it's coming from this process of surrender. I'm surrendering to everything, and I've created a huge separation between me and my thoughts. I know that can be confusing when I say we aren't what we think. There's a lot of people when I talk about that, it's like, you need the mind. And you do. You need all parts of yourself, but initially you have to separate yourself from those thoughts so that you can see which ones need to be engaged and which ones are just like fear-based or trying to stay small. There's a technique that I learned in the Headspace app called noting, which really helped me find separation from my thoughts. And in the beginning, I just noted all of them. And basically what it is once you realize that you're thinking, you just note that very softly, not with any judgment, just an awareness, and you say, oh, thinking. And the thought really does go away. When you try to control the mind, it gets crazier. When you have an awareness of the mind, it gets quieter. Like there's another thing he does in meditation in the Headspace app, which in the beginning I realized had no purpose whatsoever, but I was still fascinated by the results I got. Well, this series that I'm in now is a 3-part series, and actually there's only like 3 days left of the 30 days, and I'm kind of bummed because I'm really enjoying this one. But I've enjoyed all of them, and I know I'll enjoy the next one as well. But you know, he would have you like focus on your breathing. And not a hard focus, just kind of a soft focus, like an awareness that it's there, the rising and the falling, not trying to change the breath, nothing else, just being aware of the breath, that it's there, you know, are they deep, are they shallow, and then at least once during the meditation, he would say, okay, now just, you know, let go of all focus and just let the mind be free. My mind would be so quiet. As long as I was trying to focus on the breathing, the thoughts were like beep, 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 just coming in there. And that's when you would note, you'd be like, oh, thinking, and go back to the breath. Oh, thinking, and go back to the breath. I've reached a point where I can sit with my thoughts and not become attached to them. But in the beginning, I couldn't. So the best thing for me to do was just to let them go. Just let them all go, develop a relationship with the mind where I could see what it was doing and what it was about and where it was coming from. So to be able to separate from that, like don't say I'm feeling or I'm thinking, because when you go from that I place, then you attach to it, you associate it with like, okay, well, I feel angry, or I think that's wrong, so then it just becomes a fact instead of I'm having a thought that that's wrong. I'm experiencing a feeling. Don't associate yourself with the thought, and it's a lot easier to separate yourself from the thought. So there's an exercise that he does in there called noting, and when it comes up, you just note that you're thinking, oh, thinking, feeling. That clicker is my nemesis, isn't it? Little runaway clicker. Are you guys curious about what it looks like yet? Here, look, there's my clicker. Actually goes to a selfie stick, but it works great. So when he would say, okay, just let the mind run free, it would be so quiet. And that's because I wasn't trying to make it not think. It was allowing it. Just, you know, do what you want. And it would get so quiet in those moments. And in this one that I'm doing now, this series that I'm doing right now, in the third part, he's actually staying in that space quite a bit. And it's really showing me that when I try to control the mind, it actually controls me. When I just allow the mind, then it doesn't try to run me. It's still running in the background sometimes. Sometimes it's really quiet, which is great. Then it just stops thinking. It stops running around. But the minute that I start focusing on my breathing again, and the mind's like, over here, and it's over here, and it's over here. I'll be like, oh, thinking. And then it'll come back and it'll rest quietly again. So that's something, to, I think, practice, as well as, like last night when I went for my walk, I was thinking about how we're all really afraid to just be bored. That we're just constantly filling the mind with distractions, or the mind is filling itself with distractions, because that's a mind trick. Because we don't want to sit with ourselves, the mind does not want to sit with itself. Because when you sit with the mind and you start really seeing that the mind is separate from who you really are and how you really exist in the world, then it may start to, it'll start to die. And the mind doesn't want to die. The ego, whatever you want to call it, the child within, whatever, it's been running the show all this time, and it doesn't want to lose control. So it keeps you distracted, because if you sit there and really look at it, you're going to be like, how absurd are you being right now? And then it's going to be death to the old story. And that freaks the ego out. Like, you're doing something exciting when it requires you to surrender. And that's what being bored and sitting with yourself is it's an element of surrendering. You have to surrender, because that's when the ego and the mind will just get so loud. It's like, why are we doing? Why are we sitting here? This is done. We're bored. And my grandma used to say, and I thought it meant something totally different for a long time, and who really knows what her intention was behind it, or what her thought process was behind it. But it was a very powerful thing that she said to me, and I carried it with me all my life. And for the longest time, it meant one thing. And now, like, just in the last couple of days, it means something totally different to me. But I used to say, Grandma, I'm bored. And she's like, well, if you're bored, that means you're a boring person, because you're boring yourself. And so I really carried that with me a lot of my life, thinking, yeah, if you can't entertain yourself, nobody else is going to want to hang out with you, or, this is your stuff, And now I see it as, if I'm bored, it's because I'm in a headspace and not a heart space, because you really are never bored in a heart space. As a matter of fact, the more that you sit in a heart space, the more like quiet confidence and just enjoying the present moment for whatever it is happens. And that's great. Just learn to be bored. Like, I dare you tonight to not do any of the things that distract you. So are you somebody who comes home and just watches TV? It's a distraction. You don't want to sit with yourself. That's the only reason you're watching TV, is because you don't want to sit with yourself. And don't get me wrong, I do enjoy watching things, but not as a mind number, more as an expansive thing. Like, I like to watch documentaries that give me insights into other experiences, and I just feel kind of enlightened, like, oh, I never thought about that, or I didn't know that's how that worked, or Look, I like to watch the prison shows sometimes too. Like I'm in a series right now that I can get pretty lost into because it's about the human experience. I'm fascinated by the human experience. I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news for a very long time. Long before I even figured any of this other stuff out, I just knew that when I watched the news, I felt really icky, so I just stopped watching it. As well as I knew that there are always problems in the world, and when I first stopped watching the news, I had teenagers, and so I felt like I had enough stuff that I couldn't figure out and that I didn't understand and that was making me crazy in the brain. I didn't need anything added to it, so I stopped watching the news. And honestly, I don't feel like I'm missing anything, and my mind actually has evidence of that because when I tell somebody I don't watch the news anymore, you know what they say? Almost exactly every single time, you're not missing anything. Nobody's like, oh, really? Then you don't know what's going on with... No, I always go, you're not missing anything. So just like realize that when you are bored, it's actually exciting because your mind is telling you that you're bored. We're bored. Do something, do something, do something, because it doesn't want you to sit there. It does not want you to experience it. So yeah, I just challenge you to just be bored. Sit in those bored moments and see what comes up for you. Realize the mind just wants to be distracted, you know? We're more and more a consumer-based society, and it really wants you to stay that way because the more you stay disconnected from in here and the more that you find your pleasure and everything from outside of you, the more products you're gonna buy. I mean, if you just watch TV from an awareness place and not an escape place, you can see it. You can see all of it in the programs and the commercials. It's like, oh, are you feeling this way? Are you experiencing this? We've got the answer. Buy this, do this. So I challenge you to just be bored. You know, go for a walk, and you think that that's not a distraction. You know, well, that's a distraction too. No, it's not, because you're still hanging out with yourself. When I was walking around last night, I had so many thoughts and just so much great stuff came up. I was like, I'm going to walk tomorrow night too. So I just felt that great connection with myself. And that's what happens when you get in those bored moments. You just connect with yourself. So I challenge you today to be bored. Just do nothing. And when those thoughts come up, if this is dumb, this is stupid, just be like, cool. Who's talking? So I hope everybody has a great Friday. This is the perfect day, or even tomorrow, to practice being bored. See what comes up. Have a great day, guys. I'll probably be back later. I got so much content that's just free flowing. Thanks for watching.